We are going to start and center ourselves around a headline that's caught our attention and likely yours. The U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, claims parenting can be hazardous to your health. Hazardous to your health due to the extreme stress the modern-day parent is experiencing. He believes economic state of our nation, the influence of social media, the mental health crisis among youth, and also personal expectation are all contributing factors to growing stress and anxiety among today's parents. So simply put, he believes parents and caregivers are facing more than they can handle with little support. In his advisory, he wrote this, quote, "Chasing these unreasonable expectations has left many families feeling exhausted, burned out, and perpetually behind." But he says there are solutions, and he put out a call to action. If people, parents, and communities, he says, act now, we can work together to lift each other's burdens. Studio 5 parenting contributor Heather Johnson is here to react to the news. I thought of you the second the headline was splashed left and right and all over. It was inescapable. And here's the thing, the headline, not inspiring necessarily, sort of depressing if I can be honest. It also validated, I think, what a lot of parents are feeling, which is, yeah, parenting is hard. It can be heavy. What was your initial reaction when you saw this study?
Yeah, I think probably just that, right? There's this mixed bag. You've got this frustration on one side because parents have been screaming this for a really long time.
Sure.
For a very long time, they've been saying, this is overwhelming. We need some help here. We need more tools. We need more resources. Somebody look at the challenges here. And they've been really good at trying to find resources. And then on the other side, that feeling of finally, and that validation of, oh, okay, someone is recognizing it's not just me. It is okay that it is hard.
The validation.
The validation that comes, which is big.
Big deal and big news because he's normally advising us. I mean, this was a big statement from, you know, a top government official who's normally saying things like don't smoke, don't drink, here's some facts about COVID. This was really the first time that a U.S. Surgeon General had spoken out about an interpersonal, I mean, it's not just a role, it's a relationship.
Absolutely, and to see it recognized at that level of government, I don't actually know if we've ever seen it recognized at that level of government before. And we really shouldn't be surprised, though. If you're a parent, you know parenting is hard.
Yeah.
It is hard. He literally said exactly what we know. Parenting is hard.
He also said, we're gonna start at the high point because there was a little sentence in this really long brief that jumped out to me. I know it got your heart attention as well. He said, raising children is sacred work. And it should matter to all of us. That is something we believe wholeheartedly. What would be your reaction to that note of sacredness?
Best part of the entire thing,
Amen.
right? Of everything that was said.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at sacredness means that there is some sort of connection or devotion to God, to a higher power when we look at what sacred means. We often use the word sacred with the word consecrated, where something has been essentially set apart for a specific purpose, right? And these two words often come together. It would be pretty amazing if every day as we parent, we would remember that it is a sacred work. It's really cool to see when we remember that. Let's take a day that's a little bit easier, because we do get those days as parents, right? Just like we get the hard ones.
The highs and the lows.
Yes, on a high day, meaning an easier day, if we remember it's a sacred work, then we stay humble and we stay full of gratitude. On a day when it is terribly overwhelming, if we can remember that it's sacred work, then we're filled with hope. Then we look for more resources. Then we apply grace. So if there is anything we can take from this, anything, it would actually be that one statement that a government official is saying that it is sacred work, so that no matter what the day looks like, we have exactly what we need to tackle it.
That's a beautiful way to frame it, actually, because that lens shifts both dynamics.
Sides. Yes.
The hard and the light.
And the light.
The good and the bad. That one word, that one lens, universally alters how we look at the entire parenting experience.
Absolutely. So no matter the day, no matter the challenge, no matter what you're facing, we can be filled with the humility and the gratitude, and we can be filled with the hope and the grace, and either way, we're okay.
Dr. Murthy had some suggestions and solutions, and we always like to focus our conversation toward the helpful tone, and we're going to get there. But there were some standout statistics that he drew attention to that I would like your reaction to as well. He said nearly 70% of parents say parenting is now more difficult than it was 20 years ago, with children's use of technology and social media as the top two cited reasons. Do you agree with that?
That it's more challenging?
Yeah.
I hear that a little bit funny if I add a joke to
Okay.
it, where I sometimes don't know if we can compare today to 20 years ago because I wasn't parenting 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's an interesting
Right. So sometimes I
point.
hear that and take the step back and look at it and instead go, you know what? It doesn't matter when you've been a parent. Parenting is hard.
It's always been hard.
It's always been challenging. The challenges that our parents faced or our grandparents faced aren't challenges I know as a parent. I know these challenges. And so instead of focusing on if it's harder now or if it's easier now, I think sometimes that gets us trapped a little bit. It paralyzes us a little. Instead saying, hey, what are the challenges I face right now? And what is it that I can do to tackle these challenges? Instead of that comparison.
It didn't surprise me he cited social media and technology
Absolutely.
as like a pin of difficulty.
For sure.
Would you agree that's changed the parenting game?
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
that's different now, right? Again, we have different challenges. If I look at great-great-grandparents, they were struggling for shelter and food, and those,
Right.
We've got different challenges here. It's more important that as parents we blaze this trail and go with these new challenges. What tools do we need? What skills and abilities can we acquire in
Yeah.
order to tackle what's in front of us right now?
This was sort of interesting because we talked about this being not just a role, but a relationship, right, between adult and child, parent and kid. But he also pointed to this external feeling of loneliness that a lot of parents are experiencing. 65% of parents and guardians, in fact, and 77% of single parents in particular experience loneliness. How do you think this correlates? How does loneliness contribute to stress?
Well, there's so many opportunities in parenting to actually feel lonely. You can be in a marriage and have a partner who's parenting with you and feel like you are on very different pages when you're parenting a child, and that would feel very lonely. You could be a parent who is carrying majority of the load and you would feel lonely. You could be a single mother or a single father who is literally shouldering the load and feel lonely.
Yeah.
I think sometimes the place we feel loneliest the most in parenting is when we tell ourselves that what we're going through with our children or with ourselves, no one else is going through.
We're on that lone man island.
And as soon as we do that, right, our daughter struggles with this, or my son is struggling here, no one else's kids are struggling with this. The woman across the street, her kids, they never make a mistake, or they never. I think as soon as we get into that mindset, I think that's the epitome of loneliness. When we decide that we might be the only one, and that everyone else is void of those same challenges.
So it's embracing what, the village, the community mentality?
We can reach out and we can make sure that we're including other people. We can make sure that we're really smart with who we include, right? And that would be really important, that we're surrounding ourselves with people who are living the same values and subscribing to the same parenting practices that we're subscribing to, which is also something to take into consider. They're parenting practices because we're practicing. We're figuring this out each and every day.
Yeah.
It's kind of like with a doctor. I mean, we become educated and we do the best we can to know and to learn, but we're still practicing every day as parents. And that's where that grace comes in, to realize that it's not just our responsibility to help our kids grow and develop. Parenting is about our kids shining light on the places we need to grow and develop also. They are very good. Parenting is very good at showing me where I'm weak, at where I'm strong, also where I'm weak again, what I can work on, what tools and skills and abilities I can gather and gain. Parenting does that. So it's two ways. And I think we forget that sometimes. We make it harder for ourselves because we're quick to say parenting is hard, but we follow it up by saying, and it should be easy. And as soon as we say it should be easy, we now just made it a lot harder.
Yeah.
It is hard, and we can accept that. But parenting, it's about our refinement too. It's about us looking internally and saying, what do I need to do different? Where am I not great? And let's make that great.
I want to get to solutions. Let's take a quick 20 seconds, though, on this final data point. 41% of parents say that most days, according to this report, most days they are so stressed they cannot function. And 48% who responded say that most days their stress is completely overwhelming. That was sort of a break tap for me. That's a huge number of people.
Those are really big
Did that
numbers.
surprise you?
I don't know, surprised, but they're big numbers.
Yeah.
I think more to see them in print, you take a step back and decide, I can look at these numbers and they get to decide where we head next. I think that's more how I was struck. We can look at them and go, this is unbelievable, it's way too much, this is so sad, and become paralyzed, like there's no hope here. Or we can go the other way and have it turn on the light bulbs for us and say, all right, now that we know that there is this loneliness or there is this overwhelm to paralysis. What can we do? What can we do by looking at neighbors and ourselves, and where do we help?
Here's what the Surgeon General suggested. He laid out a handful of solutions for both employers, communities, schools, health systems, researchers, families, and friends. He was calling on the wide collective here. Care for yourself. Even small investments of time can help reduce your stress. Nurture connections with other caregivers. You touched on that. And empower yourself with info on mental health care. What would you add to that list, Heather? What is one thing that, as you consider all of the data and all of the research that was laid forward in this report, that you would like to see parents, where you would like to see parents go from here?
If there is one single place to put your energy, it is in learning to manage your own emotions, to become as emotionally intelligent as you possibly can. This is twofold. This is us learning to manage our own emotions, which means we have to be very self-reflective. We have to be open enough to look at ourselves and recognize where our emotions are coming from, and even more, we have to figure out how to negotiate them so that no matter what shows up, whether it's financial strain or school strain with a child, whatever it might be, that we can manage the emotions we experience so we can actually see what the situation needs. We've got to be able to do that. The second piece of emotional intelligence, though, is us being able to understand our children's emotions, no matter their age. And then from there, if we tack it on, which maybe be a second, is be able to communicate about it.
To talk about it.
That we can actually have conversations about what that emotional management looks like.
Yeah.
If there is one thing that sits at the root of anything we ever experience and feel, it will always come down to that. It always will.
And hopefully, may I add and borrow words that you've said in the past, hopefully they're conversations that do have that underlying tone of hope. That we can do this and we were meant to do this, and with the right skills, the right communication, the right support, I think these numbers could look a lot different.
Absolutely.
So I'm glad we're having the conversation.
Yep.
Thank you, Heather, so much. Heather coaches families and individuals. We'll link her contact information from our website. We'll also post the full advisory outline so that you can access it there from the Studio 5 website. Thanks again, sister.